Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. We're going to be doing something a bit different today. So we're going to have a Figma design. We have a Figma design and we're going to try and build this out using React.js, so JSX and Tailwind CSS for all our styling. But to get started, I already deployed this, part of it, basically the setup, onto GitHub. And I think before I begin, I'm also going to just deploy this as well. So git add all, so that in case you want to follow along, you can just grab these files as they are. But basically towards the end, I'll also commit the what's it called, the end result. So just push them. Okay, so let's see. Yep. So if you want to get started, you can just clone this repository, home, monitor, landing page. Actually, let me just grab this and then let me paste it in chat. For the setup files. Okay, and then I think I'm just going to begin. And I might not be talking all through the design, but that's okay. So where was I? I want to close this, and then I already have my development server running, which is this way. I'm still not sure how I want to build this because I don't have the mobile design for this, but that's okay. We'll just figure it out as we go. So one thing I did do though is that I created my data arrays somewhere. I created my navbar, which is this right here. I created my bottom navbar, which is this right here. And then I created the about section, which is this grid right here, because I don't want to import 4 images. And then I also created the blog section, which is this blog section, as you can see. And then I have the listings.js, and the listings.js is this this grid of 4 items. And then finally, I already have the navbar. The navbar is just basically this at the top. But you'll notice that in the navbar I don't have the logo and I don't have these 2 end buttons, so I'm just going to hard code them in. Okay, so if you want to get started, let me just actually add the readme. You can say git clone the repository, and then for the setup, let's say first of all you want to npm install to install node modules and run npm start. And then you will also need, I have UUID installed, so you don't need that. And then I also have React icons. So once you run npm install, it will install all the necessary dependencies for you to install node modules and all other necessary dependencies. Then you can run npm start to start your development server. Okay, number 2, optional. I want to set this as optional. React developer tools, Chrome extension to get access to the components and profiler tabs in your Chrome debugging. I think that's just basically all that we will need for this. So let me just git add readme, git commit, let's say update readme, just like that, and then we can begin to work on our application. So I can close this down, kill terminal, so that we only have our server running right here, and it's running on localhost 3000, as you can see right there. Okay, so what I actually want to do is just first of all create a components folder. So in my source folder, I'm going to create a components folder. This is just a convention, you don't have to do this really, but you know, it's always a good thing to stick with convention. And then inside my components folder, I'm going to create a new file and call this navbar.js, and then I'm going to say array.fce, which is coming from my extension, which is called ES7 React Redux GraphQL and React Native Snippets. So if you want to run array.fce, always have this installed. Make sure that you have it installed. Okay, so right inside here, I'm going to return an empty fragment, not an empty fragment, but a fragment, and then I will need to import a few things. First of all, I need to import my data, which will house everything inside here, and I have it at data, and it's called navbar.js. As you can see, I have the home, the categories, about us, which is basically what we have in our navbar, right? Okay, so once I do that, I'm going to say import data from, it's coming from, where is it, from data, and it's called navbar, like that. The next thing I'll need is use state, and then I will also need this image for the logo, and this image can be found, let me say import logo, and it's found in images, and it's called logo. Did I call it logo? Let me just see, logo.png, right there. So logo.png right there. And then the first thing that I want to do first of all is to return a header, and then inside this header I'm going to return a div, and then inside this div I'm going to return my logo, which is basically an image, and the source for this is for the logo, which I've just imported right there. So if you'd like to call this cat, for example, you'll also have to rename this to cat, but it doesn't really matter because it is only targeting the image right there. So I'd like to just call it logo, generic name, and then for the alt I'm just going to say logo, right? And then I want to return a navbar with ULs and how many LIs. Oops, that's not how I want to do it. I want to return a UL first of all, right? And then for the LIs, I don't want to return each one of them because I want to map over this data that I have right there in my navbar.js. I want to map over this data, and then I can display the text that is within it, right? So I can do that by saying, first of all, let me set up my state values, and I'm going to say const, let me say links, and set links, which is coming from use state, and the default value is the data that I have right there. And once again, this is the default export, I think, right? It's a default export, so you can call this whatever you want, and then just make sure that it's the same name that you have right there. And then inside here, inside my UL, I want to map over the links that I have, so links.map, and then for every link, then I want to destructure the items within, the objects within, so I have the ID and the text right there, so ID and text, and this is coming from link. Now one thing you should know is that you don't have to do this really if I comment this out, but I will need to set up my return, and in this return I want to return a list item, right? And this list item will have the key of link.id, right? Because I haven't destructured anything, so I have to use dot notation to access the ID within it. And then for the text inside here, I want to return a text that just says link.text, right? Now if you don't want to do link.link.link. If you had multiple items, then you can just come here and destructure, and then you can now remove this, and it's basically the same thing. It's all your preference. It all depends on how you'd want to understand it. And then now once because the links are basically all of this, then we want to deal with our two buttons right there. And then below the nav, I want to return a div, and this div I want to return two buttons. And then this, the first button is going to say log in. Let me say log in, and then the second button for this is going to say sign up, like that. And then because I want to use Tailwind CSS for my styling, I haven't imported it, so I have to go to cdnjs.com so that I can get the Tailwind CDN, Tailwind CSS, grab the link tag, and then I can just place it. Let me place it here. Okay. Now once I've installed the Tailwind CDN, you'll realize that some of our styling will reset if we had some default styling. Where's my, okay. Some of our styling will reset because now you can see we don't have the margin and the padding that come with the headers and everything else, but that's okay. And then now I just want to render this navbar so that I can begin to style it so that it looks close to our design. And I can do that by going into app.js, and then at the top, first of all, let me change this into an arrow function. So I'm going to say const app equals to this, and this equals to an arrow function. And then above this, I'm going to say import navbar from, it's coming from components, and it's called navbar, like that. And then in order to render it, first of all, I want to return my fragment, and then I just want to render navbar, like that. And then once I save that, then we should see something, and we have this right there. So these are our buttons, as you can see. Now just to show you what Tailwind does, let me place this on this other side, and then I'm just going to disable, you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to disable the Tailwind CDN that I have right here. And then notice that the buttons will have some default styling, and then the ULs also have some bullets, and then there's a default padding. So in case you're wondering why you don't see this, basically it's because of the Tailwind CDN that we have right there, which does that. Okay, so let's begin some default styling, and I want this to place to the side like that. And then I'm going to say, going to my navbar, I'm going to say for the header, first of all, give this a class name of flex item center and justify between, so that they go in raw form and they are all, you know, they justify to the space between the content that is within the navbar. And then I want to target this so that I can display flex on this as well. So for the navbar, for the ULs, I'm going to say give this a class name, oops, class name of flex, like that. And then for each individual list item within this list item right there after the key, I want to give this a class name of mx-1 so that they separate from one another. Let's say 2, like that. So mx2, and then for the same for the buttons. For the button right here, I'm going to say give this a class name, oops, class name of mx, let's say 3. They separate out. And then for the header, I want to add some padding. So padding on the y, let's say padding of 1, and padding on the x, let's say of 2, not of 2 but of 5, which will push it inwards like that. Which means basically now this has a padding of 5 according to Tailwind, but and the right side also has a padding of 5. But remember, we also added a margin on it. So what I want to do is just remove this from here. Remove this so that it doesn't have more space than is actually necessary, and then we can begin to style this everything inside here. Okay, you'll notice that I have some default styling in my index CSS, but I'm going to get to this later. I just have the font that I've imported from Google Fonts, which is called Noto Sans, and I just set the body to font family of Noto Sans, and then these are my what's it called? These are my my global variables. Let me just move this to the bottom. These are my global variables. Okay. I'm actually starting to realize that maybe I don't really need this, but let's see. Let's just see how that goes. Let's see how that goes. By the way, while I was creating this, I didn't think that I was going to be using Tailwind CSS, so that's okay. So let's place this like this, and then we can have this right here, so that, let's look at our design. I want to reduce the fonts just a bit, reduce the font size for the list items. So right here I'm going to say text small, like that, and then here as well I'm going to say text small, and then for this as well give this a class name of text small, like that. And I've just realized that I think I'm just going to do the desktop version for this because it's much easier. So what I'm going to do is just place this full screen so that I can just deal with this at once, and then I'll need to add some margin on the list items. So on this, where was I? Right here I'm going to say mx of 5. Let's see how this looks. Separates it out even more, and then I will need to add some more padding for the header. So inside right here I'm going to say padding on the x, let's set this to 32, which will push it inwards like that, and then padding on the y, let's say 3, which will push it downwards just a bit. Let's see how this design looks. Okay, looking nice, Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is just deal with this. Actually, I won't be able to see my styling on this before I add this image, so let me deal with the showcase first, and I'm going to call this section hero. So I'm going to create a new component and call it hero.js, like that, capital H. I'm going to say array fce, and I need to import this image because I'm going to be using this image, and I'm going to say import hero. Let's say hero img from, it's coming from images, and it's called hero.png. Let me just confirm that, hero.png. Okay, and then I want to return a fragment once again, and then this will almost be like a div on its own. I'm not sure I'm going to do this, but I need to return an h1. So let's return a section, right? Inside this section it will have a div with an h1 saying home, and then this is inside a span. So let me just do span that says home, and the reason why I have it inside a span is because you can see it's color yellow, which is different from all of this. So home, and it says is where your Wi-Fi connects automatically, is where your Wi-Fi connects, like that. And then below this we're going to have a paragraph that says, let's help you find a homely apartment. Let's help you find a homely apartment, with 2 emojis that say, this is called rocket, and then I also need the fire right there. Okay, looking very nice, and then we need to have a separate div, and this div will be housing the image that we have imported called hero img, and the art I'm just going to say showcase. Okay, and then I'm not going to do this currently, I'm going to maybe do it towards the end, but the first thing that I want to do is first render this component, so I will need to import it. So import hero here, and then just say render the hero, and where is it, and we have this right there. Okay, so first thing I want to do is just, first of all, I want to make this position absolute. Okay, so that I can position it to the right, and then to the top of 0, so that it goes below the header, like that. And I'm going to say right here, I'm going to give this a class name of absolute, and right 0 and top 0. let's see how this looks, and we have that. And then for the z index, I would need to add a z index. How do I add a negative z index in Tailwind? Let's see, minus z index of 10. Nope. Let me just go to the cheat sheet and just see if I can add z index. So I can't add a z index, a negative z index here. So what I can do is I can go to my header, to my navbar, sorry, and then I can say here, let this position absolute, and then I'm going to position full width so that it goes end to end. So basically we won't have to change anything except probably just tile this out a bit. And then I'm going to give this a z index of, let's say, 50, so that it's above this, like that. Okay, and then we will need to move this down, right? We will need to move we will need to move this down. So what I will do is give this section a class name of relative, so that this is positioned absolute within the section and nothing changes basically, so that's okay. And then give this a height of the screen so that it's basically 100 viewport heights. And then I can go inside this div and give this a class name, give this a class name of flex, and then I'm going to say items center so that it's positioned completely to the center horizontally. So if I save that, then nothing happens, because this also needs to have a height of this viewport height, which will do this, bring it down to the bottom. And then once I do that, I want this to be flex column so that the items go in column form. Really? Why do you do this? Let's say, is it justify center? Okay, justify center. Okay, there you go. And then obviously I want to add some padding on this so that it rhymes with this, you know. So I want to just move this inwards just a bit, which means I will do what padding did I have on the navbar? 32. So I'm going to say on my hero, let me also have a padding of px 32 for the first div so that it moves inwards like that. And then now we can begin to style our header as well as our paragraph right there. And then I'm going to say that for my header, first of all, give this a class name of text purple, and let's say around 500 shade. Nope, let's darker, so 900. And then let's say font bold. Actually, you know what, instead of doing this text purple here, let me use my CSS variables which I created, and I'm going to say that I want this text color, right? I want this text color for my what's it called, for my header. So I'm going to give this, I'm going to create a class of text color, and then I'm just going to say for the color, set it to text color, like that. So this is a class I've created, and in order to use it, I just need to pass in this class to wherever I want, and I want it to be right here, so text color, like that. And you'll notice that I say once I save, then it has the text color of very dark purple. I don't know whether you can see it. Let me just try to zoom in. Okay, let me just try to zoom in, and you can see that it has a text color of purple, just like that, a very dark purple, right? And then we need to style this out a bit more. Let's see how this looks in our design. Let me close this. Let's see how our design looks. Right, looking nice. So first of all, let me deal with this span. Give this span a class name of span dash color, so that I can target it in my CSS. I'm going to say for my span dash color, I want this to have a color of this, so span color. So set the color to span color like that. And I just remember that for the paragraph, I also want the text color on the paragraph, so I'm just going to add a comma here and place paragraph right there. Okay, looking nice. Actually, that's not the correct color. This is a bit lighter, so let me see what I have in my CSS. What do I have in my CSS? Or instead of doing that, let me just do this. It has a color of this, so I can go back here, remove this paragraph from there, set it below this, and set the color to this. Right, set this to HSL like that, so that my interesting. Wait, 275.17.39. Where is it? Let's see. 275.17.39. It's not here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the paragraph this color. Where is it? This color, because it seems to be the closest. So for the testimonial color, set this to testimonial color like that, and then that should change it. So let's deal with our H1, and I'm going to go back into my hero, and I'm going to say for the H1, change this to font bold, and I'm going to say text, let's say 6XL. Let's say leading snug to increase the line height, and then let's set the width to a half, which is 50%. We should do that like that. And then let's set the margin bottom to 5 to push away from the paragraph. Let's see 10, push away from the paragraph. Let me change this leading to leading 10. Leading tight, leading normal. Let me just remove it. Let's see how this looks. My design looks like this. Let me just set it to leading snug. Leading snug. Leading snug is the class to change the line height of an element in Tailwind CSS. So this will do this. So home is where your Wi-Fi connects automatically. And then now that you can see how our header looks, then I can style this up a bit. Let's see how this paragraph looks. Okay, the paragraph is fine. The paragraph is fine. So let me just deal with these buttons. And then I'm going to place this to the side and go back into my navbar.js. My navbar.js like that. And in my navbar.js, I'm going to target this first button first of all. Give this a class of text purple, let's say 900. Let's say font bold, and then uppercase to transform it to uppercase like that. And then I'm going to go into this other button, give this a background of white, give this a padding on the Y of 2 and a padding on the X of 4. Give this a class of rounded dash full. Give this a text color of purple dash 900 once again. Change it to font bold and say uppercase like that. And then for the hover effect, actually let me just add a border first of all. And then for the hover effect, I want the background to turn to purple dash 900 shade. And then once again for the hover, I want the text to change to white like that. Okay, and then just so that it doesn't pop in, I'm just going to say transition all like that. Looking nice, looking nice. not bad, not bad. And then we can finally move on to our second page, which is basically our listings page, as you can see right there. So for our listings, I'm going to create a new component. So I can close this down, and then inside my components, I'm going to create a listings JS, so capital L, remember it's capital L, and then I'm going to say RAFCE once again, and then I will need to import the data that I have for this. So I'm going to import data from, it's coming from data, and it's called listings, like that. And if you want to check it out, you can just go into your data folder right there, and you can check on listings, and listings is right here. As you can see, it's basically 4 different images, but they all have the same information because this is a dummy site. Okay, so what we do now, what we need to do now is let's see listing.js. I need to import use state, so use state like that, so that I can set up my state values. So I'm going to say const, let's say cards, and set cards like that, and this will be coming from use state, and the default data for the use state will be my data which I've just imported. And then within this file, I want to import these 3 icons that you see there. So I need to import the location icon, the phone icon, as well as the heart icon right there. So I'm going to say import FA phone and FA, not FA, but let me just import them because they're all coming from different libraries. So this is coming from react-icons/FA, React with a C. And remember, we already installed React Icons. If you did not install React Icons, then you will need to run npm install React Icons right there. And then we also need to import the location marker, so it's called hi location marker like that. This is coming from react-icons, and it's coming from the hero icons library. And then finally we need to import the heart, so bs heart, which is coming from react-icons/bootstrap like that. And then the first thing I want to do is just return a fragment, and then inside this fragment I want to return a section, and then inside this section I want to map over the data that I have, so cards.map, and for every card then I want to destructure everything that I will need, which is quite a few things. So let's see, let me go into my listings. Where's my listings JS right there? Okay, so let me just place this to this side, place this full screen, so that I can say I need to destructure the ID, image, tag 1, tag 2, tag 3, tag 4, title, details, location, excuse me, and the phone. And this is all coming from card. Now once again, you don't really have to do this, but the reason why I like doing this, destructuring everything, is because it gets much easier when targeting them. If you don't want to do this, then it's basically all your preference. And then I want to set up my return, and I want to return a div, and this div will have the key of ID, which is a unique ID generated by UUID, as you can see. And then inside this div I want to return an image first of all, and the source for this will be from the image, which is basically this right here, as you can see. And then for the alt, in case the image fails to load, I just want to return the title of the card, right? And then I can close this now, so that I can place this back to the side, so that I can view this as it is. You can view this as it is like that. And then after returning the image, what I want to do is I need to return the tags. So I want to return another div first of all, with four small elements, so times 4, so that I can say this is tag 1, and then just grab this copy this here, copy it here, copy it here, change this to 2, oops, to 2, change this to 3, and change this to 4, like that, which is basically these 4 tags that we're going to style. And then below this, I want to return an h4 saying the title, and then below the title I want to return a paragraph, right? And the first thing that I want to render is the icon, so I want to render the hi location icon. Remember, it's a React component, so always render it as a React component. And then for the text, I'm going to say, let me return the details. Is it the details? Not the details, but the location, like that. And then below this paragraph, I want to render another paragraph with the font, so fa font, like that. After which I'm going to just say I want it to say the font, like that, which will get the text inside our data. And then for this details is basically view details right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, and then I'm going to place this inside a div, so that I can place a paragraph inside here that says details. And the reason for that is because I want to display flex on this, so that I can space between, I can set them to space between, so that it goes end to end, as you can see right there. So let me save that, and then let me import it in my app.js. And I'm going to say copy this down, change this to listings, and then just render listings, like that, which should render, close this, listings.js, in listings.js, this is called listings with an S. So hi location, it's called marker, and I called it icon, it's called marker. Is it a capital M? Is it a capital M or a small m? Okay, so basically we have this, which is, looking nice. And then one thing that I forgot really is that we need our bootstrap icon, which will be positioned absolute, and I'm going to do that in a moment. So what I want to do right now is just to return this as a grid of 2 items, and then just add padding on the top of this. So I'm going to go inside this section right there, give this a class name of padding top of, let's say 32, which will push it down. Let's say 56, which will push it down even further. And then does this have a text? It has a text, yes, that says new listings and view all listings. So let me do that. Right inside here, I'm going to return a div with an h2 that says view listings. And then on this other end, I'm going to return a paragraph that says view all listings. And then just give this a class name of flex items center and justify between, and then give this a padding on the x of 32, so that it's the same as this right there. And then I need to change this from here, so that I place it here. So save that, which will push this down like that, looking very nice. And actually, you know what, I've just realized that this color is annoying me, so I'm going to go back into my index CSS and remove this. Okay, after which I'm going to say, first of all, let me add a padding on the x of 32, so that this moves inwards as well. And then I'm going to say grid, so display grid with grid columns of 2 items each, like that. Add a grid gap of 10, separate this out, add a border, which will add a border around them. Did it add a border? It added a border around this, which I don't want, so let me remove this from here. And then I'm going to go inside this divs, give this a class name of border, which should now place the border within the actual divs like that. I don't know if you can see them looking very nice. And then I'm going to say give this a class of rounded so that the borders are rounded. And then for the images, let me see if I can give this a class name of width full, so that they take up the entire width and they don't leave any space behind. And then inside this I want to have a padding. Let me see how this looks. Okay, so a padding all round, of, let's say 5, so they'll push inwards just a bit, which makes the borders a little bit more pronounced. Oops, not what I wanted to do. And then what do we do next? The next thing that I want to do is have this positioned relative, and you will realize why in a moment once we are positioning our heart icon as absolute right there. Okay, so I can work with only one side because this is basically only a desktop version, because I'm not doing a mobile version. Let me see how my H2 looks right here. So it's bigger. Let me just deal with that. What class did I give on my in my hero, was it? I gave this a class of text color. Is that the class that I have right here? Right. So what I'm going to do is give this H2 a class name of text color as well, so that it's the same purple shade that I have in my hero. Okay, and then right here I'm going to say give this a class of font bold, and then margin bottom of 5, like that. And then actually I shouldn't have added margin right there, I should have added it here instead, so margin bottom of 5. Okay, and then increase this size, the text size of this H2, so I'm going to say text of 4XL, make it just a bit bigger, that's too big, let's say 3XL. Okay, 3XL. And then let me deal with this paragraph as well. So for this paragraph I'm going to give this a class name of underline and text color as well, which will do that. And then let me reduce the text to small, like that. So view all listings, and then I'm going to say cursor dash pointer, so that when I hover over it, it has a pointer cursor like that, so that it behaves like a link, but it's technically not a link. And then let me see, the images also have a rounded border, so I'm going to go inside my image. Here's my image right here, and give this a class of rounded dash large, so that they have a large rounded border, as you can see, looking nice. And then I'm going to say margin bottom of 2, so they push away from this just a bit. And then for each of these small tags, now they'll all have the same class, so I want to style all of them at once. So give this a class name of what did I have for my tags? For my tags I had tags color, right? So what I'm going to do is right here give this, select all the smalls, and I'm going to give this a background color of tags color, like that. Okay, looking very nice. And then I'm going to go back into my listings and give this a margin on the X of 2. We should separate them out like that. Give them a padding on the X of 1, like that, and then give them a class of rounded. Now let's say rounded dash large, like that, and then reduce the text to extra small, like that. Let's say padding on the X, go back here, padding on the X, let me set that to 2, so that they just, they're much more readable. And then let's say padding on the Y of 2 as well. Nope, that's too big. 1. Yeah, 1 is fine. 1 is fine. 1 is fine. Okay. After which I can say that for this div, give this a class name of margin bottom of 4, which will push it down. And then for this h3 right there, give this a class name. And I've just realized that it's much easier if I do this. If I do this, I'm going to say for my h1, h2, h3, h4, h5, and h6, so that they all do the same thing. And I'm going to say font weight bold, because these are all things that I'm repeating and I don't want to repeat them. So all I have to do now is just change the text size for each one of them, right? And actually this looks fine as it is. And I'm just going to say inside by listings.js, give this a class name of mb5, not 5 but 3, push it down like that. And then I'm going to go, oops, no, that's not what I wanted. What I wanted is, because I want this to display flex, so I'm going to say right into this div, I'm going to say flex items center and justify between, like that, which will now place it to the side. Alright guys, so what's happening is that there's some bit of noise all around me. So what I'm going to do is just I'm going to end the stream, because I don't want to have a bad experience with this. And then probably I'm going to continue right from right here. I'm just going to continue it from right here, and I'm going to continue tomorrow, where you can catch the stream at maybe in the morning or in the afternoon. Okay, so let me just commit my changes to GitHub. And first of all, I'm going to stop the server, and I'm going to say git add all, git commit -m, and I'm going to say home landing page hero and listings components, like that. And then I'm just going to say git push, which should now reflect in my repository once everything has committed, like that. So let me open this up, and we have right there, so 21 seconds ago. So if you've joined the stream, I want to thank you for watching, and I guess I will see you in the next stream, perhaps tomorrow. That's okay. Oops, I didn't see your question. So EXO, this is a design but that someone else created from Twitter, and they just sent it to me, and then now I'm just basically turning the design into a website that I hope I can deploy, and then I can share it back with them. So that's basically what happened. Sorry I didn't see your question soon enough. Right guys, so yeah, that would be it. Thank you guys for watching.